Berlin, December 1944, an SS operative leans forward and whispers two words. 50,000. Not a name, a price. The official story is simple. A senior insider shot while resisting during a routine arrest. But a ledger entry exists, a handler exists. And the money moved through Himmler's inner circle the day the man died. The confession matches a sanitized room, a sealed coffin, and a cover story used before. If this holds, it wasn't discipline, it was a contract killing inside the Nazi state. To understand why, we need to go back to the one threat Himmler couldn't tolerate: the threat and the machinery. The target sat close enough to power to smell it. A senior insider with knowledge of foreign contacts, budget lines, and which doors the SD kept unlocked. His survival endangered Himmler's control because he knew the machinery. And worse, he knew where it broke. The official story is simple. Himmler was consolidating after waves of purges. But that's not where this story ends. That's where the questions begin. His fear wasn't only enemies in London or Moscow, it was leaks that could reach them. Rival networks inside the Reich, party men who talked too freely, officers who thought the war was already lost. Now let me tell you about the instrument, the SD and the RSHA, on paper, intelligence and security. In practice, political weapons. They didn't just collect reports, they curated reality. Files opened careers and closed lives. A nod from the wrong desk could erase a person and their history by nightfall. Here's the first strange thing. The confessor wasn't a street thug. He was a mid-level operative with access. Black budgets, cutouts, and handlers who spoke in euphemisms. He never says kill. He says neutralize, final measure, state security. Get this? They actually framed an execution like an inventory task. Why does 50,000 Reichsmarks matter? Because in late 1944, it was a fortune. An SS Obersturmbannführer might earn a few thousand a year. Officers were scrounging for coal and sausage. Inflation squeezed rations. Yet someone moved 50,000 chiros in crisp bundles for one task. Money like that wasn't salary. It was leverage. It bought silence, speed, and a clean chain of obedience. One detail would matter later. An alias used for payouts appears in two separate files months apart. Same letters, same spelling error. Either remarkable coincidence or a lazy habit inside a very secret office. 3 days earlier, a handler meeting in a safe flat. No uniforms, coats on hooks, blackout curtains drawn. Orders arrive as state security, not murder. The cover story is pre-written. Resisted arrest, hidden pistol, necessary force. The paperwork exists before the night does. Meanwhile, something else was happening. The victim receives a sudden transfer order. No reason. Then isolation, restricted visitors, shuffled guards, a room moved to the end of a dim corridor. The operation window narrows to a single night. Precisely the night the alert sirens run an air raid drill. While that unfolds, a payment request labeled equipment requisition sits stamped urgent. The routing will matter later, but note the timing. Here's the second strange thing. The death occurs hours after the payout clears. A cash office linked to Prince Albrechtstrasse. This was the moment everything changed. The plan isn't to arrest, it's to end a problem and erase the fingerprints. If you're watching this and wondering what really happened, hit that subscribe button. The operation and the payment trail. Stakes first. One man's life on a winter night, weighed against a message that would echo through every hallway in Berlin. Cross Himmler, and your death will read like paperwork. The target knew too much. Contacts abroad, budgets inside, weak joints in the RSHA's spine. If he lived, others might talk. If he died, every potential dissenter would hear the warning in silence. Then, the action. The arrest team arrives under cover of routine. Lights cut, hallway cleared. The building warden announces an air raid drill, standard enough, except the sirens start 5 minutes earlier than the schedule posted in the lobby. Boots move on felt soles. A sentry at the stairwell waves 2 men through without logging them. On the landing, a third figure waits with a medical kit. The room tells a different story than the report. No overturned chair, no broken glass, no scuff on the parquet, a single shot. The medical officer steps in, touches the wrist, nods once. The certificate appears minutes later with the familiar phrasing, resisted arrest, presented a concealed pistol, necessary force applied. The pistol, by the way, is the same model cited in a different case 3 months earlier, right down to the serial format. This was the moment everything changed. Facts reduced to boilerplate. Here's the first strange thing inside the building's own logs. The guard book notes 2 visitors who never sign in. Later, the page disappears. A replacement book shows neat entries, backfilled in one hand. You can still see the imprint of the original pencil under light. 2 lines, times matching the siren, names missing. Then, the confession. Our operative, the one who whispered 50,000, recounts the coded phrase authorizing the kill. 4 words. He gives the handler's name and the hour. Late, after the payout cleared. He doesn't dramatize it. He recites it like a warehouse manifest. Paper backs him up. A black budget voucher surfaces a tidy square of bureaucracy marked Equipment Requisition, 50,000 Reichsmarks, stamped urgent. The routing isn't random. Funds move through a cultural front office, the sort that organized exhibitions and loyalty concerts. From there, they slide to a cash office off Prince Albrechtstrasse, the SS Nerve Center, where cashiers keep ledgers in pencil and twine-sealed bundles under the counter. That alias reappears. The same payee tag, a nonsense surname with a consistent misspelling, shows up in a security operation 6 months earlier. Same desk officer initials. Same code block in the corner. Either an epic coincidence or someone in a hurry reused the same ghost. What nobody knew at the time, the victim had sent a sealed memo to a neutral diplomat 3 days before the transfer order. No details in the open record, only the routing tag on the embassy pouch. If that memo held names or numbers, Himmler had a reason to act before it surfaced. Micro story, the cashier remembers the bundles. Crisp notes, too crisp for late 44 when the presses were straining and paper felt thin. Sealed with a red cord, unusual by then because string was rationed and twine was the norm. He signs the chit, slides the stacks to a man with a leather folder, and watches the door close. He later tells Allied interrogators that he never saw red cord again. Ledger gap. 2 pages torn from the cash book. Under angled light, forensic techs read the pressure marks. The figures line up with the voucher reference number down to the last 2 digits. The date matches the night of the killing. The entry beneath it, blank. It's the silence that convicts. Impact lands fast. Within 24 hours, the victim's staff scatter. Reassignments without explanation, telephones tapped, desk drawers emptied by men who don't make eye contact. The office obituary appears with phrases lifted word for word from that earlier resisting arrest case. The funeral is closed to family. The coffin is sealed. An autopsy is denied for security. A small slip exposes the path. The requisition code, those 4 alphanumerics in the corner, gets reused by mistake on a training expense 2 weeks later. An auditor flags the duplication. He scribbles a question mark. That notation survives when so much else doesn't. The handler rises, then vanishes. He's promoted, transferred east as the Soviets push. After January, his name drops out of duty rosters. Convenient. The cashier's wartime statement sleeps in a file labeled Economic Crimes, because that's how the Allies first saw it, skimming budgets, not murder. Why the 50,000 matters, it pins the confession to a timestamp, a desk, a corridor where the light bulbs went dark early. It ties money to motive, motive to method, and method to command. The SS legal office senses the tremor and emits a memo denouncing rumor mongers. It's unsigned. Authority without a name. Fear replaces loyalty. Whispers travel across town to neutral embassies and back. People learn the new rule. If the room is quiet and the story is tidy, you're already in trouble. But that's not where this story ends. The confession alone wouldn't hold until a second voice spoke. Act 3. Second voice, fractures, and the aftermath. Stakes rise when corroboration appears. One confession is rumor. 2 aligned testimonies, a payment trail, and a reused cover story. That's a pattern a court can see. New perspective, a signals officer, lower profile, admits under post-war questioning that he intercepted a priority call the night of the killing. Short, clipped, with a phrase that matches the confessor's coded authorization. He logged it, then misfiled it in a folder for civil defense drills. He says he was told the phrase meant execute the plan, not proceed with arrest. Human moment. He keeps a carbon copy, thin blue paper, folded into a family Bible. He hides it under a photograph of his wedding day. Years later, he produces it with shaking hands. The ink is faded, but the 4 words are legible, and the timestamp matches the cash office ledger imprint. Impact sharpens. 2 voices, 1 paper trail, 1 boilerplate obituary reused like a stencil. Meanwhile, across town, a deputy under Himmler orders a purge of unreliable staff in the dead man's office. Careers end with a single line on a reassignment order. Families find men at the end of the street, smoking, watching. Letters vanish from mailboxes. The message lands without a speech. Post-war interrogations stack names against times. The cashier's memory, the signals officer's carbon, the confessor's handler. Timelines align, but key documents are missing, redacted, or burned when Berlin falls. What the evidence can't prove is the final step. Who spoke the last order? Spoken, not written. The system thrived on verbal commands and deniable edges. Prosecutors make choices. They focus on atrocity cases with living witnesses and mass graves. A single internal murder, even if political, slides into the shadows because the docket is already heavy and the defendants are many. The operative who confessed becomes a source. He trades details for leniency, then dies before a public hearing can pin him down. Ripple effect. The 50,000 mark blueprint, alias Cultural Front, cash office, sealed coffin, becomes a template whispered inside the apparatus. Later accidents look familiar. No struggle, quick certificate, and a purse of quiet money moving 2 days earlier. The official story remains simple. Resisted arrest. The people who knew either vanished in the east, drowned in paper fires, or learned to be quiet in new uniforms. In the aftermath, one question keeps cutting through the noise. What did the money buy? It bought obedience on demand. It bought a closed room and a clean page. And for a while, it bought power. We may never know whose voice spoke those 4 words, but the cash left fingerprints the fire couldn't erase. Conclusion, resolution, and meaning. A regime that paid for silence didn't trust loyalty. It rented it by the bundle, stamped urgent, and tied with red cord. If this trail made you question the official story, subscribe now. We bring you the history they don't teach in school. Tell me in the comments, sanctioned hit or rogue job? And if you want more buried truths and circumstantial evidence that still cuts, watch the next one. I read every single comment.